Welcome to Everything Co-op, bringing you information on how cooperatives can help improve your quality of life. This show is being sponsored by the National Co-op Bank, NCB. The NCB is dedicated to strengthening communities nationwide for the delivery of banking and financial services for the nation's cooperatives, their members, and other socially responsible organizations. For more information on the power of community ownership, visit ncb.coop. That's ncb.coop. Now stay tuned for your host, Vernon Oakes.
Good morning, everybody. This is Vernon Oakes. Welcome to Everything Cooperative. This morning we have Mr. Richard Stammer, who is our guest today. He is going to be inducted into the Cooperative Hall of Fame on May the 8th at the National Press Club. Dinner time and the induction ceremony is from 7 to 9:30 p.m. Mr. Stammer, good morning. How are you doing?
Good morning, Vernon.
So I understand you were a tenured professor of agricultural economics, and then you took on the daunting role of being a CEO of two companies that were going bankrupt.
That's correct, yes.
Okay, how does that go from in the classroom, which I've taught a few years at the college level where it's nice and neat and safe, and jump into the firing pan of real life business running and people's lives and communities involved, and you're working on that. What was that like?
Well, it was, as you can imagine, a huge change. As you said, life as a tenured professor is pretty nice, but it's the type of thing where I had done what I wanted to do at the university and was really looking for more challenges, and so I had been doing some consulting work for Agri-Mark, and when they offered me a job, first to come there as an economist, and then I worked my way up to chief operating officer and then CEO.
So you had done what you wanted, and you were looking for challenges, and you got challenged.
I got challenged, yeah.
You got challenged.
I went back to the university a few times to, talk with my colleagues, and they said, well, what's the big difference between the university and the scary new world? And I said, well, here at the university, we'll spend 3 years doing some research and writing up a paper and maybe finally get it published. And in the real world, you have a few hours to make a couple $1 million decision.
And people's lives and communities. Yes.
And lots depends on it.
Yes. So let's go all the way back to see, how did you become a tenured professor? That's a process. So,
yeah, that's quite a process. I got a bachelor's and a master's degree at Rutgers University, and then a PhD at the University of Connecticut. And then after I got my PhD, I was looking around for jobs, and Rutgers University wanted me to come back there. So I started back there as an assistant professor and, again, worked my way up to a tenured position. And again, it's the usual stuff: teaching, research, publishing, all those things you have to do.
So what year did you get your PhD?
I got my PhD in 1971.
And when were you tenured?
I was tenured, I believe it was 1978 or 79.
Well, that's quick. That's great. That's phenomenal. Okay, so it only took you 7 or 8 years to get tenured after the PhD at Rutgers.
Yes.
And though, what I find interesting when I say it's quick is that a lot of times you've got to have a lot of research, and you've got to have people in your corner that's working for you, and you're doing things that people like, and you're teaching, and your students like you. You got a lot to become tenured. So that was congratulations.
Thank you. It does take a lot. And, when I told my colleagues there that a lot who were struggling to get tenure, that I was leaving for the real world, a lot of them couldn't believe it.
You got to be crazy. What are you talking about? This is tenured. Is a lifetime. It's hard to get fired. You got to do something really stupid to get fired. You got decent income, safe environment. Why would you leave that? Hey, you say you want challenge. Okay.
I was still pretty young, so I wanted challenge.
Okay. Well, okay, we won't say what goes with young but okay, I got it. I got it. Okay, so then you were doing consulting for Agri-Mark. And what is Agri-Mark?
Okay, Agri-Mark is a dairy cooperative based in our home base is in New England and New York State. That's where our farmer members are from. And we market all the milk of our farmer members and represent them legislatively. And, that's basically our function to try to add value to their milk.
So you have a sense of how many farmers there were there when you went there, and when did you go there, by the way?
I went there in 1982. And I believe in 1982, we had a little over 2,000 farmers, I believe.
Okay.
And today we have around 1,000.
Okay, we'll come back and talk about that reduction, half of it. But as a cooperative, you got all of these farmers producing milk, and so you are helping them to market and add value to their milk. And in legislation, you're looking at different ways, different legislation, both, I guess, on the regional level and the national level to help the farmers.
That's correct. They are farmer members of Agri-Mark. We have a contract with them we market all of their milk, so they can produce however much milk they want. They make their own decisions on their own farms. We take that milk from them and sell it, run it through our plants, market it, do whatever we can to get the highest return for our farmers. And any profit we make goes back to our farmers. And they also invest some equity in the cooperative, so we have equity to run the business of it. And then in dairy, there's federal legislation, there's local legislation, there's environmental legislation, there's lots of things that affect the individual dairy farmer.
Mm-hmm.
And we represent them at a lot of different levels of government.
So I have it there are basically 4 types of co-ops. If a co-op is owned by the employees, it's called a worker cooperative, and therefore you can have any type of company. It could be owned by the employees. And then if it's owned by the people that uses the products or services, it's called a consumer cooperative. You normally have credit unions, housing co-ops. But any business also could be owned by the people that uses it. In Madison, Wisconsin, there's a health clinic that's owned by the patients, so it's a patient-centric cooperative. And then farmers and artists and other people had 2 other types of co-ops, and that is one is when they purchase the kinds of things that they need to farm, or artists to create what they want to create. They would come together and they would buy their seed or their fertilizers and normally get a better product at a lower price working through a co-op. And on the other end of the farm, once they take these products that they need, and they create something, in this case, dairy farmers creating milk, then they sell it to a marketing, or they call it sometimes it's a producer cooperative. And that's what you're telling me Agri-Mark was. It's a marketing cooperative that takes all of that milk from 2,000 farmers in 1982, add some value to it, package it, do stuff, and get it to markets that individual farmer probably could not get it to, and therefore get the best price that you can for that farmer. And if there's profit, then they get some of that too. Okay.
Yeah, we would classify ourselves as a marketing cooperative.
Right.
And again, all of our profit goes back to our farmers. Some goes back in cash, and some is an equity investment in the cooperative, which they get back when they go out of farming.
So, okay, even if you keep money, if you had $100 of profit, all of that goes to the farmer. It could go in 1 or 2 different ways. One is at cash, or the other one it goes in equity.
That's correct, yes.
Okay. Because I've heard some in this program, some co-ops will also say some of that profit could go to the community to help community problems. They had 3 different things.
Yeah, we do a lot of community work, but that really comes out of our operating expenses. It's part of our operating budget.
Okay.
So that really comes out before profit.
Okay, so if I could, at 1982, when you made this choice to go out of this safe environment and jumped into the frying pan, or from the frying pan into the fire, but how old were you? You said young. I got it. But how old were you in 1982?
Let's see. In 82, I was 41 years old.
Okay.
So it's young because today I'm 75. Right? Age is all relative.
That's all relative. And so at 41, did you have a family and children and all of that?
Yes, I had two children. They were pretty young at that point. I think they were like 6 and 3. And they were really at an age where we could move them pretty easily. Mm-hmm. And my wife and I, we loved New England, and we wanted to relocate to New England from New Jersey, which is where Rutgers is. So it was really everything kind of meshed together. Okay, it was the right opportunity, at the right time, in the right place. Okay,
so it's clear you are what I would call heavy. You're smart. You've got this PhD. You've gone through this, and you've done it at a relatively young age. Got tenure relatively quick. That also says you're highly intelligent, and you're taking that intelligence now and you're going to take it to the real world and in the cooperative. So how did you get involved in co-ops? So I assume because you're in agriculture, and Department of Agriculture and the U.S. Department of Agriculture seems to know more about co-ops than any other department in the U.S. government. So I assume you learned about it by being in agriculture, but where did you first learn about co-ops?
I actually learned, it's kind of an interesting story with, I would say, my first mentor. I grew up in New Jersey, suburban New Jersey, and my father worked for Bell Labs, and he had a good friend who worked there also who was laid off during the Depression, and his wife came from a farm, and so they went to dairy farming. And during the summers, we used to visit them for a week or two. And I became really interested in dairy farming. And then from, about 8th grade all through high school and a little bit of college, I worked on this farm my whole summer. And I had proposed to this farmer. They had no children of their own. So I proposed to him that, could I work my way up, work for him get an equity position, and maybe someday take over the farm. I love the farm. And he said to me, the world has enough farmers. What they need are people who can help farmers. Mm. And then he kind of introduced me to cooperatives and explained all the cooperatives that helped him in his business. So he belonged to a marketing cooperative. He belonged to a supply cooperative. He borrowed money from a cooperative bank. And so he kind of introduced me to the world of cooperatives. And so then when I went to college, that was kind of my focus. I would like to work in this cooperative world. And then that's kind of how I structured my academic career.
That's like, wow, because I'm 72 this year, and I didn't learn about co-ops until about 25 years ago. So 50 is before I learned, and that was in managing housing co-ops.
Yeah.
And then have fallen in love with this model and wish I had learned about it when I got my MBA. And nowhere in my formal education did I know about co-ops. But we're going to take our first break.
Okay.
And Richard, it's an absolute pleasure. We'll come back and talk a little bit more about this sort of beginning with co-op. We'll be right back.
Okay.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Vernon Oakes, and the program is Everything Co-op, and we are talking to Mr. Richard Stammer, who is on the line, Dr. Richard Stammer. We were talking before the break of how you learned about co-ops and working on a farm. You were working on the farm from the 8th grade, which is about 13, 14 years old, all the way through college, and you had somebody give you some great advice. A lot of farmers, but farmers need help, and he taught you about co-ops. I spent 12 years teaching, 10 years in the corporate level, 26 years in my own business with property management, about 48 years of a career. And we've been doing this radio program for about 5.5 years. And it wasn't, Richard, until 10 years ago, I figured out what I want to be when I grow up. I didn't know before that. And you got it very young. I've envied people like you. They said, I know what I want to do, and you're working toward it. I've just said, okay, whatever I do, I would do it with excellence. But 10 years ago, I decided I want to promote and develop co-ops. I like it so much.
Well, I would say I didn't have that clear a picture. I knew I wanted to do something in agriculture and with cooperatives. And my first career path was at the university, where, I taught classes there, and I actually worked with some of the small cooperatives in New Jersey. But that was sort of my first career path, and then it took a dramatic change to actually work directly for cooperatives. So I think we all kind of feel our way around. I also advise students at the university, and I'd have freshmen come in and say, "Boy, I don't know what I want to do," and I'd say to them, "Don't feel bad."
Yes, right. That's why I was telling them the same thing. Okay.
We sort of follow path where opportunity takes us. But if I hadn't have worked on that farm, like most Americans, I probably wouldn't know much about cooperatives.
Yep. Well, this program, the National Co-op Bank, is sponsoring it so that we can let people know about co-ops and the benefits of co-ops. Particularly, like you said, in Agri-Mark, you had money in your budget to help the community. I like that even better than some people said 1/3 went to the community, 1/3 was saved to grow the business, and 1/3 went back in dividends or patronage fund back to the owners. But you have it built into your budget to help the community.
Well, part of that is, of course, this comes out, as I said, before any profit distribution. So our owners, our farmer members, they have to support these activities, or we wouldn't be doing them. But they all live in communities. Farmers generally are pretty involved in their community. They're on the school board, they're on various committees. So, they're quite involved in their community. So they support our efforts to help communities. They see that as an extension of them.
Right. I find that co-ops do. It's built in a community. The people live in that community. They spend their money in that community. They help whatever the problems of that community, are really involved in it. And I think the ethical values of co-ops are honesty, openness, social responsibility, and caring for others. So right in that value statement, there's taking care of others and being social responsible. It fits.
That's very true. I mean, as you know, there's real personal satisfaction in working for a cooperative. It's not the highest paying job in the world, but I will tell you that it's the personal satisfaction is enormous.
Well, I've seen some research when you talk about compensation, and you mentioned highest payment, and I think you mean in terms of dollars.
In terms of dollars, right.
But when you look at total compensation, dollars turn out to be not the most important piece when the research is done on what employees look for. And that personal satisfaction is high at the top. Also helping community, caring for family, safety, security. Dollars fall in there, but it's down toward the bottom of the list of the top 10, not toward the top. And I always found that interesting because most folks, like I did when I was younger, was always looking for the highest paying job until I get into that job and find out, well, wait a minute, am I happy?
Yeah, I would say it's very true. It sort of varies, with the position in the company. I mean, for a person who's working, let's say, in our manufacturing plants, most of them, at least when they start, are, the dollar's important and we pay competitive wages. As people move up the scale of management, maybe our wages become somewhat less competitive than other sectors, but they get into the co-op feeling, and that personal satisfaction is, as you said, makes up for money. I've told some of my business colleagues, the real satisfaction for me is I can drive down the road and see one of my owners, the guy I'm working for, out on the tractor, working hard. And I know that every dollar I can make for the co-op helps him. and that satisfaction is huge.
Huge. And I don't think you can pay somebody dollars for that satisfaction. It's huge.
No, it is, and it's I don't only know him. I know his family.
Yeah.
For a lot of them, okay, and the community they live in. So it's just that personal satisfaction is pretty much invaluable.
Well, a couple things I would love to see some research on. Dr. Jessica Gordon Nimhart has written a book called Collective Courage, looking at African Americans and the co-op movement, particularly through the civil rights, but going all the way back. And I've had her on the show several times, but the last time she told me there was some research done that said when people work together, that the body throw off chemicals, and she thought it was dopamines, and people feel better. And that's yeah. And I haven't seen the research. It makes sense to me that particularly the highest satisfaction you're talking about, this personal satisfaction. And during Women's Month last month, I forgot who was talking about it, said that women throw off more dopamines working together than men, and maybe that's why more women are in the co-op movement than men. Okay.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Again, don't know if this is true, but it makes for some interesting conversation because of his personal satisfaction that you talked about, but what might be happening chemically in the body. And, I know what I wanted to tell you. There was a lady from Finland on the show last year, and Finland won the UN's Happiest Country Award for last year. And I had her on the show, and she said, well, you know why people are happy in Finland? And she said that Finland have the highest number of people in co-ops than anywhere else in the world. I don't know where she got that number from, but that's what she said. Okay. And so that there's more people in Finland that belong to, and she was saying, 3 or 4 different co-ops that you may belong to. And like your farmer, he's a marketing co-op, a supply co-op, a cooperative bank, but a person, like I'm a member of a food co-op, a credit union, and I live in a housing co-op.
Yep.
So if you look at the different numbers of co-ops that people in Finland belong to, there's a lot. Okay. Whether it's the highest number or not, I don't know, but that's what she said. And she said that's the reason they won the Happiest Country Award, because the highest number of people work or live in or are members of co-ops. I found that very interesting. So that's why I said it would be great to do this research.
Well, it would be. And to me, we live in a world today where businesses are getting bigger, but people have this desire for more local, more control, more hands-on. And to me, the co-op model is the perfect model to kind of deal with that. You can be part of something, and you can be part of something that's local and that gives you value. And so it's really unfortunate more people don't understand the cooperatives.
Well, that's what I am trying to do. Again, that's been my life mission of what I figured I want to do, is to get people to understand it. And if we can get more and more people to understand it, then I think more people will gravitate toward using co-ops and or belonging to or starting co-ops. And I looked over your information. It seemed like that's one of the things you pushed for, was making sure people understood this model.
I'm a proselytizer for co-ops. I think it's a great business model.
Okay, we're going to take our next break, and when I come back, I want to talk a little bit more about Agri-Mark and what it did and how you got over this bankruptcy and merging with Cabot and becoming the chief executive officer of both Agri-Mark and Cabot Cheese. And we've had Roberta McDonald, the marketing person, on.
Yes.
So, but we'll take our second break, and we'll come right back and talk a little bit more about these two businesses and the personal satisfaction you got. Cooperative. You know, this program is sponsored by the National Cooperative Bank. They have been a partner, a friend, a mentor. They've helped us to grow, and they really, really push us to tell this story. Because NCB's mission is to support and be an advocate for America's cooperatives and their members, especially in low-income communities, by providing innovative financial and related services. So it's a different kind of a bank. I mean, most banks don't go into low-income communities because most banks look for people that already have assets. So if they make a loan, then if the loan goes down, they can go to these other assets and get their money back. But NCB has figured out a way of going into low-income communities, helping them create cooperatives. And when they create cooperatives, all the things that Mr. Richard Stammer and I have been talking about, Dr. Stammer and I have been talking about today, happens. And people really work together, and most co-ops don't fail. So they stay in and they pay back their loans. So it's been working. So Dr. Stammer, we were talking about Agri-Mark and Cabot Creamery. So can you tell us a little bit more about when you got to Agri-Mark? You had talked about you worked your way up to CEO, but when did this bankruptcy come about?
Well, I came there in 1982, and like I said, I came as their economist. And at that point, Agri-Mark, along with Agway, which I don't know if you're familiar with, but that was a farm supply cooperative in the Northeast, since taken over by Southern states. But they had joined together to buy a dairy company in New England, the H.B. Hood Company. And Agri-Mark farmers had this commitment to trying to get into value-added products to get more return, so they put up the money to make this purchase of the Hood Company happen. Well, that didn't really work out as we had thought it would. So in around 1990, Agri-Mark and Agway broke up our partnership with the Hood Company, and we got some payment out of that, which we put in equity. And so we had some equity, cooperative equity. But as a co-op itself, Agri-Mark, all we were basically doing was taking milk from our members and selling it to somebody else. Mm-hmm. And our farmers really wanted to get back into the consumer products business. And as Agri-Mark itself, I would say we were a break-even company. You know, some years we would lose money, some years we would make money, but it was pretty much break-even business. And then the Cabot Cooperative, which was a small separate cooperative in Vermont, they went bankrupt around 1982. And
you're saying Cabot, C-A-B-O-T, Cabot?
C-A-B-O-T.
Mm-hmm.
You can buy Cabot cheese, certainly in the Washington area.
Sure.
And throughout most of the country now, okay? So they went bankrupt, and we're looking at what to do. And so I worked within the Agri-Mark and convinced our people that we ought to merge with Cabot. We wanted to get in the consumer products business. We had some equity, and Cabot was bankrupt. So we put together a whole merger plan, presented it to our farmers, and they agreed. They wanted to get back into the consumer products business. And at that point, Cabot was a pretty small marketing company. I think they had, maybe 150 farmers, and sold mostly in Vermont and a little bit throughout the rest of New England. So we merged with them. When we merged, we had, and this is in 1982, we had kept their original CEO on for a couple of years, but it really wasn't working out. The company was still struggling. He was not really into being a farmer-owned cooperative.
Okay.
So we let him go, and then I took over in 1994 as CEO of Cabot.
Cabot is they're celebrating 100 years now.
Yes, this is our 100th anniversary.
So if this merger hadn't happened, they may not have been around.
Okay. I don't think they would have been around. I think they probably would have sold the consumer products business to Kraft or somebody else, and the farmers would have disbanded and joined some other cooperative. So so we got together. I took over as CEO, and we grew the business from pretty much a Vermont business to pretty much a nationwide business now.
Wow, you don't. Okay. I had no idea that they went bankrupt in 1992, was it?
92, right. Yep.
Yeah, I didn't know that part of their story.
So when Agri-Mark came in with the merger, when they went bankrupt, basically the farmers who owned Cabot at that point had no equity left. They had lost all their equity. So as part of the merger, we restored their equity. So the existing Cabot farmers didn't lose any equity. They gained, equity now in Agri-Mark, which was the parent cooperative, and then that equity grew from that point on.
Well, those 150 farmers must really like Agri-Mark.
I think they did after a time. At the time, it was sort of most of them. I would say the majority wanted to merge and become part of Agri-Mark, but they were a struggling cooperative, and there's always some dissenters in that.
Right.
But after a period of time, and they saw that we could perform, I think most of them ended up being pretty happy.
But how did you go from 2,000 farmers to 1,000 for Agri-Mark? Did the farmers get bigger, or what happened there? Yeah,
it's pretty much the trend. Well, it's a trend in agriculture, and pretty much a trend in the whole dairy industry that every year there's less and less farmers, and the farmers that survive are bigger than the farmers that didn't survive. So although we have half as many farmers, we have about the same amount of milk as we had. So it was kind of the progression that we see in agriculture. Farmers are getting less and less. The farmers who remain are getting bigger.
In those economies of scale, that the bigger farmers, you need to be bigger in order to make the farming work?
Well, there's really a lot of factors. I think the most significant one is a lot of our small farmers, they work 24/7.
Wow.
There's no vacation, there's no anything, because the cows have to be milked twice a day, every day of the year. And so their life is the farm. Then they have children, and, some of those children want to come to the farm, but the farm's not big enough to support two families, so they have to get bigger. Now, if you looked at, cows per family, they wouldn't be that much bigger, but the farm itself has to get bigger just to support two families. And then what usually happens is maybe there's another child that wants to farm. And so the farm again has to get bigger to support three families. When that happens, something else happens, and now they find out that, boy, we can split up labor on the farm, so we all don't have to work 24/7.
That's what I was going to ask you. Yeah. Okay.
So that makes a much better lifestyle for the farmers. They can actually take a vacation and take a day off. And a lot of the farms that went out, they didn't have family members who wanted to take over the farm. The next generation didn't want to work 24/7.
I can't blame them.
Well, me neither. And so those farms just went out of business. So as I look at what happened over these years, yes, the farms got bigger, but the farms that survived really were the farms. They were kind of multi-generational farms, and they were farms where they could divide up labor, so people could have more of a life. Okay. So it's as I look back on it now, we always hated to see farmers go out, but as I look back on it now, and I see, I think it's a more sustainable model. We have probably more young people today on farms who want to stay in farming than we did 10, 20 years ago, because they're in a multi-generational farm where they can have a life. and where a spouse would like to live that night. So I think it's a better picture. And just to give you an example, we run a program for young cooperators. These are young people who work on farms.
Now, when you say we, is that Agri-Mark or Cabot or both?
Well, Agri-Mark and Cabot. So we run this program for young farmers, teach them about, most of the program is focused on cooperatives, what a cooperative is, what a cooperative does for you, how a cooperative works. About, probably 15 years ago, that program almost died because we just didn't have enough young farmers to support that. And today, I would say that program's as vibrant as it's ever been. We have a lot of young people on farms interested in farming because they can live a life. And these people are pretty exciting. You know, they're on social media. They're very involved in their communities. And it's really a great thing to have watched this happen. And I don't think it would have happened if the farms had not gotten bigger so they could support a couple families.
Support a couple family, probably employee or two. And
yes, a lot of them have employees also. And, you know, they actually can do a better job at things like animal care.
Okay. We have to take our next break. I'm sorry.
Okay.
This is so exciting here. I forget all about taking the breaks. But we'll take this break and we'll be right back. Information is power. That's why WL makes a great partner for this program, because we're trying to give you the information, giving you the information about cooperatives so you can go out and you can find a co-op, a credit union, a housing co-op, a food co-op, a dairy co-op, or you can look in the grocery stores for Cabot Creamery and other co-ops like Ocean Spray, Land O'Lakes. There's a lot of different co-ops out there that have co-op products that you could buy, or you could start your own. And CDF, Cooperative Development Foundation, is having the Hall of Fame, and Dr. Stammer is a member, and he's going to be inducted into the Cooperative Hall of Fame. But they also have funds. The Co-op Hall of Fame is a fundraiser so that they can have funds to help people start their co-ops. And the dinner is on May the 8th. And it's a whole day talking about co-ops. So, Dr. Stammer, we were talking about Agri-Mark and Cabot Creamery, which you became the CEO of both of those, and the contributions of the dairy industry. You talked about how the economical viability, sustainability, social, environmental contributions to the dairy farmer. So you had a lot to do with this, what you were just talking about. At least you've been given credit for it.
I probably get too much credit. You know, people have asked me, how did you make this company successful from a bankrupt company? Mm-hmm. And I've often said, you know, I had a great staff and I was a good listener. I had some very talented people who worked for the company who had really good ideas, but they really weren't listened to before. And so when I took over as CEO, I really listened to my staff. And in fact, I advised, you know, you learn more if you listen than if you talk. So I listened to these talented people and then made decisions on, you know, what they told me. So it's really because of them the thing is successful. I said I was the band leader, but the band leader's no good without, you know, a good first trumpet and violin and drums and everything else. It really takes that to make it happen.
So you all work cooperatively. You worked as a team.
Very much.
Yeah. Yeah. That's one of the other things I've heard a lot on this program when I've talked to people in the leadership positions and not in leadership positions is that in the co-op, you have to work together. That's what it's all about, and learning how to work together. How did you all resolve conflict? Or you never had conflict, I'm sure.
Oh, we had lots of conflict. You know, when you have very bright people, and I encouraged everybody, to speak up and put their ideas out there, and sometimes we could reach a conclusion, and sometimes the orchestra leader has to say, okay, that's the way we're going.
Mm-hmm.
And, we were a good enough team that if I said that's the way we were going, that's the way we went, and everybody rowed the boat in the same direction. But no, when we would have staff meetings, we had a lot of conflict. Everybody with a good idea, but we discussed them, and then we decided which way to go.
So did you all have training in conflict resolution, anything like that?
No.
Okay.
No, I guess it was just something that, when I was a professor, we spent about 3 or 4 years, my wife and I being residence counselors in a student apartment complex.
Mm-hmm.
And I really self-learned a lot about conflict management. Okay, when you got 4 people living together who can't live together over little things, and they come to you, you sort of you kind of work it out. So I guess it was on-the-job training for conflict management.
Because I've seen some training, the 5th principle of co-ops, there's 7 main principles, although Mandragon has 10. They've added 3 more to the 1844 principles, co-op principles. The 5th one is the one that's one of the reasons I started liking co-ops is because of training information. And so some people on here have talked about part of their training was conflict resolution, the financials, the statements, and whatever organization it is in, and learning about that organization. This kind of training you were talking about you do for young people to understand co-ops and how co-ops work. So all of that training I really like about co-ops, because I got it that the Bible says where 2 or more people are gathered, God is there, and I have it that the reason God has to be there is because there's going to be conflict. Where there's 2 or more. Yeah.
Well, but we do in our young cooperator program, actually, we run programs on, because most of these are family businesses. So we run programs with them. We bring in outside people on conflict management on the farm and on things like succession planning. How do you do this on the farm? These are often tough things to talk about within a family.
Yeah.
And so we actually offer, training in that to our young cooperative members. What do you do when dad doesn't want to give you any responsibility and you want responsibility?
And you also, succession planning, you got to talk about dad not being there one day. And
that's right.
That's hard enough.
And dad doesn't want to talk about that.
Mm-hmm. That's a hard conversation for a lot of people. So you've done something really, really well, because Cabot now has expanded from a Vermont, basically a local business selling their cheese and other products. You got cheese, and it's Cabot Creamery. So what are the products of Cabot Creamery besides cheese?
So we sell cheese, butter, and cultured dairy products, cottage cheese, yogurt, dips. That's basically our product line. We have a few other things we sell, like whipped cream, but cheese is the real heart and soul of our business. And then I'd say butter and cultured products. Cheese we pretty much sell throughout the United States. Cultured products, because of their shorter shelf life, we sell on the East Coast. And butter is more of a New England, New York product. You may find a few other places, but that's more of a regional product.
But how did you get into this whey protein thing?
Well, you remember Miss Muffet, right?
Miss Muffet? Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. When you make cheese, you get 2 products. You get cheese curds and you get whey. And whey is basically made up of lactose, which is a dairy sugar, and some proteins. And basically, in the older days, that was dumped on the fields, the whey. and it polluted streams, and it was really a waste product. So as more environmental consciousness came about, that it really wasn't good to have to dump this stuff in streams. We had to figure out what to do with it. And this just isn't us. This isn't Agri-Mark. This is the industry. So what we found out was you could take this whey product and separate it into two products. One, which is lactose, which is basically sugar, milk sugar, and the other, which is whey protein concentrate, which is a high-valued protein. And the whey protein concentrate, what I'd say to you is, say we have you from life to death with whey protein concentrate.
Right. From babies yeah.
Right. If you look at infant formula, it's basically whey protein concentrate. If you look at bodybuilder supplements, it's whey protein concentrate. And if you look at Ensure, it's whey protein concentrate. So it's kind of a miracle protein that we used to dump on the field.
Wow.
So it's really pretty big success story.
Yes. Now, we only have a couple minutes left, sir, and I really would like for you at 75 years old and highly successful, what would you like to leave people with? What's your thought message?
I guess my thought message is I hope people explore, get interested in co-ops. I hope they join co-ops, because I think you'll learn more about a co-op when you actually join one and see what it's there for. But then think about what you could do in your everyday life that you might be able to do cooperatively. And there's so much stuff that I think people could look at. And as you said, I'm a member of a credit union, a food co-op. I mean, I believe in the cooperative model. And I think it makes a better life for people.
I think we got to leave it there. It makes for a better life for people.
Yep, I agree.
All right, sir. Sir, thank you very much, and I'll look forward to meeting you at the dinner at the Hall of Fame. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.